GIFs encapsulate moments and times that we feel, or the moment in time before we have a fully formed thought. They are fleeting. They're a sensation that could be somewhere between emotion and thought, but not quite either one. And that, to me, is what the point and the power of GIFs.
What's up? Welcome to Same But Mini, a bite-sized version of our podcast where we explain the most talked about tech buzzwords, one analogy at a time. I'm Mohan, and today is all about the GIF. Who are you and what do you do?
My name's Anthony Johnson. I am currently CTO of a company called Thrasio. For the last 4 years, I helped build out the GIF company called GIPHY as their CTO. So I've spent a good portion of the last 4 years thinking about just GIFs.
Not a bad thing to think about. And so, yeah, I know. So Anthony, we know each other from your time there at GIPHY. I think just about when you started, actually, and you were really thinking about GIFs in unique ways, thinking about them as communication, as well as potentially thinking about the data aspect of it. So just kind of deep diving into your analogy a little bit about how you were thinking about it is, what is the purpose of a GIF? It's kind of a thought. It's the thoughts that kind of linger, but it's not a fully baked thought. So what are we using GIFs for?
It'll be interesting explaining this in a purely spoken context. But I think one of the things that we have to understand about GIFs is, in today's world, is we actually are, in spite of all the technology, in spite of the computers, in spite of the myriad of pieces of information floating about, we actually struggle as human beings to express fundamental concepts to each other. And that may not seem obvious, but then you start looking at what are the technologies that have emerged and what are the weird things that have come out of them that never really had obvious reasons to exist. So let's go back to like the mid-90s. Cell phones start appearing. Well, the weird thing is, in the 90s, you could call people. Lots of people had cell phones, and they could call each other. And there was this weird little thing that allowed people to write texts. And no one really thought this was actually a feature that anyone really cared about. But this was a thing that exploded. Now, there's a couple of economic reasons for this, but there's also a need. At the end of the day, I need, as a person, I wanted at the time to be able to send a message to a friend saying, hey, I'm running 5 minutes late. Now, I could call them up, but this wasn't like a 5-minute discussion about the reasons why I'm late and how we should think about this and have a long, drawn-out conversation about it. It was just a very simple, factual piece of information, partly apologetic, hey, sorry, I'm running late, and partly informational, I am running 5 minutes late. Great. So we have this weird thing that gets layered on top of what should be a great communication mechanism, speech. Text winds up being a little bit limited. I can't actually express emotion. So we have emoticons. We have like all these like strange things of like punctuation marks being slapped together to express a depth of emotion that is limited because I'm texting and it's not very long. It's not fully written out. And so there's something still missing. All right, so that's good. And then we realize that, it turns out two pieces of punctuation slapped together doesn't really express a great deal of human emotion. So we start getting emojis, we start getting more and more rich pieces. And they're generally speaking something that is trying to express an emotion or something that's very, very common and that's a shared experience. And so now you have, I think in the Unicode library, I think there's like officially 2,000 emojis, something like that. And when it comes down to actually talking or expressing myself, I probably still use 10. You got to say, okay, why is that? In theory, you have this 4,000, this 2,000 things you could learn. Well, I think the reason that people don't use them is the reason why it's hard to learn Japanese. If you need 4,000 characters to even start expressing yourself, it's going to take a long time. And on top of that, it's generic. So this is where GIFs show up. Now I can say something, I can type something, I can search for something. It's a little bit more effort, but it creates something that lets me express that thought that I had or that emotion that I had in a way that isn't generic.
That's profound, though, right? A GIF, which is essentially, almost like a lo-fi, small, short video file, has the tone or the ability to convey a tone, the depth, and potentially, as you mentioned, this element of personalization that we're frankly incapable of expressing with our actual language that's been around forever. I wonder, what does that say about language and potentially about our evolution in communicating? Like, how is that going to change things? Does multimedia become a regular part of our communication, of writing books, of conveying information?
I think it's a very important topic. And I was reading a book from the 1940s, and it interspersed references to T.S. Eliot. It interspersed references to sort of Latin and Greek quotations from Homer and from Ovid. And it's weird because we don't have so basically the way they would write is referring to a bunch of other stuff that was common and that was shared culture between the readers of the books. Now, we do have shared culture still, but it's very transient. We all probably know, I don't know, the show The Housewives of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
We know it exists. I personally don't think I've ever watched it, but we know it exists, but we haven't all watched it. We haven't all spent I don't know, however 10 hours in school studying it, so that it's a common thing that we could all refer to as a cultural reference to express emotion of some kind in a slightly deeper way, or complexity or nuance of society. And so as we lose that sort of kind of shared culture, and shared is strong because at the end of the day it was shared between a very small group of people. So as culture becomes broader, as more cultures get mixed in, as we communicate across, in a modern world with hundreds of cultures all happening simultaneously. And so I think that's where language changes, because we still want to have that depth of expression, but we don't expect people to just, I don't know, learn learn some ancient Latin text as a common cultural reference. And that's a good thing, but it means we need new tools.
Right. And the interesting thing you also commented on earlier is what kind of blew my mind with the rise, or almost like the reintroduction or the re-rise of GIF, was that video in the early 2000s. We were already seeing YouTube was coming about, Flash, JavaScript. You were seeing video become so easily accessible and shareable, but this medium, for some reason, is still potentially much more powerful, much more apt for the use in communication. Do you see that is that also driven by more of kind of this cultural or social reference points, or is that actually more of a technological rationale behind that? It's easy, it's portable.
I mean, the truth is, when we say GIFs, usually we're actually talking about 10 different technologies powering that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this point, a GIF can have sound. It could in some cases, it can be interactive. It could be much and can be much richer in some environments. But I think I think what really matters about it is that communication. It's the fact that we've changed how we speak. We've changed language. Emails, how we wrote emails 20 years ago and how we write emails today are different. Language evolves, and the only reason we use the alphabet we do is because we were all exposed to it.
Right.
And it was the thing that was easiest to support. So what happens if that gets expanded? We should change. We should evolve. We should use more characters and more ways of speaking. And I think text is a great place where we need more density of information. So we're always running around. We are communicating with 12 different people and typing short lines of responses. And each one of those, the more it can convey, the better. And so if written language as it stands today isn't quite enough, then I think there is that opportunity to create something better and to express more. And I think that's where GIFs come into play.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that point, language can evolve, or language does evolve, I think is a tremendous takeaway from this conversation, to understand that the same way potentially what you're seeing on the web has evolved from text to image to GIF to video, because our capacity or our tools have evolved. And I think you brought up an interesting point about this idea of it being lightweight. I actually understand lightweight not only from the technical aspect of it, but actually from this idea of it can carry so much. It can carry so many more words. It's the old adage of, a picture is 1,000 words. A GIF is 1,000,000. To that point, if you can put your crystal ball in front of you and think in the future, 20, 30, 50 years, as utopian, dystopian, how is this evolution of technology going to change or shape our future then?
The way I look at it is this. Say 20 years ago, a lot of people had computers. And those computers some computers were at the office, some computers were at home, but they were computers. They weren't things, and they were like shared. So you would have a family computer that's used by 12 different people and whatever. Well, okay, probably not 12. Let's say 4 different people. And it was a tool. And now a phone has changed that. A phone is not a shared thing. A phone is like an email address. It's a extension of a person, and it, we've all seen the studies that show that, like, at the end of the day, we're far less likely to lose our phone than we are our keys. They are something that we carry with us everywhere, including places we probably shouldn't, like the toilet. But what's weird is, like, it's personalized because it's something you can configure and customize, but how you communicate with it is still a little generic. And so it will become more contextual. How we communicate will be defined through things like GIFs that are from a library of things that are reflective of my interests, from media that is constantly changing based on the things that I watch. So if there are TV shows that I'm watching right now, then I shouldn't have to go in and find them. The way I communicate should automatically know whether that's something that it's part of the identity I want to communicate, and it should adapt. Maybe with certain people, I would want how I speak to automatically hint at that. But maybe in the work context, I would want a much less media-heavy, much less referential type of communication.
That's so fascinating. Just the idea of thinking about your language being adaptive and contextually aware, and kind of coming at your fingertips in a way that your fingertips, your ear, wherever, in a way that suits the setting, suits your mood, suits potentially, as you said, how you want to project based on circumstance. It seems far out, but also it seems almost natural. I almost think about it right now when I type on an iPhone. I type a word, the emoji I use for that word pops up, and I think it's just a hint at that future.
Yeah, and I think it'll be amazing to see it. And I think for us, for anyone who's like not grown up with this from day one, will probably find it incredibly uncomfortable and turn it off.
That's great. Hey, what's your favorite GIF?
What is my favorite GIF? Because, this is all about expression of self. There's a couple of ones of me that, obviously are the best GIFs ever created.
This will define you and your personality to everyone who listens.
I think they're pretty accurate. They are. I've actually used them multiple times in talking to friends, because they capture an emotion, a feeling, and a weird set of facial expressions that I could not possibly find an actual word for. So, yeah, it's about personalization.
Do you remember what the GIFs are? The favorites?
Of course.
Can you explain? Well, you don't think language can explain them?
It can, but not with quite the right accuracy. There's a great one of me with a crab claws looking like an idiot, but I'll be honest, it kind of reflects something that I occasionally do feel, and I honestly don't know what the right word would be. Crazy eyes, let me look up the exact. Lobster, congrats, applause, tickle. Yeah, the words that go with it don't really capture why I use it.
And then we have to have the This is the question I should have asked you at the beginning. Can you pronounce GIF for us?
Well, I'm obviously very, very biased. But yes, I do quote GIF.
GIF, got it.
I think we're gradually winning that war.
I think so too. We'll just decide right now it is GIF.
Now it's a matter of just letting everyone know.
Exactly. Anthony, thank you so much for the time. I think this was probably the most thoughtful conversation I've had without the use of GIFs. We appreciate the time. Thank you for joining. Same, but a mini episode. It's not common we get to hear the words lobster, congrats, applause, and I think the last one was tickle, all strung together. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's episode was written and hosted by me, Mahan Zanuzzi, produced by Corrine Javier and Lee Schneider, exec produced by Steph Wolf. Music by Ouvra. Thank you to our guest, Anthony Johnson. You can find more Same on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your ear candy. Please subscribe. Thanks for listening. Spread love.
This episode was brought to you in part by BCG Digital Ventures. BCG DV builds revolutionary new businesses with the world's most influential corporations. Learn more at bcgdv.com.